just got done watching the third and final US-American president debate, and I gotta say that was probably one of the most boring things I've ever watched in my life, and I don't think it will have any effect on the US election race whatsoever. Some people might actually ask, why on earth does a Brit and a Swede actually bother watching US presidential debates? After all, isn't this just to determine US domestic policy? The fact of the matter is that US domestic policy affects not just America, but the entire world, whether we like it or not. Right, and if a British person says that, you know it's true. Because, believe me, the last thing someone from this country wants to think is that American policy actually affects us. But it does. The majority of the Western world is basically America's bitch. And where America goes, everyone else follows. Why that is the case, it's because it's the largest Western country on the planet. You could combine the populations of the UK, Ireland, France and Germany together, and it still wouldn't scratch that of the United States. And they're one big entity. They're not divided by language like in Europe. They're not divided by geography like the Anglosphere. They're all one nation, and that is a very powerful thing that should not be underestimated. And so, you kind of have to care whether you like it or not. And so I tune in, and we all knew that the first presidential debate was a bit of a disaster. It wasn't exactly presidential, to say the least. The second one wasn't even a debate. It was just a bunch of slime balls talking bollocks to each other behind closed doors. So this is really the only real proper debate that there is. And as I said, I think it was the most boring thing I've ever watched. Granted, debates aren't meant to be entertaining. It's not like you're meant to sit there with your popcorn slapping your knee, chugging Mountain Dew, going, "Oh, this is hilarious," right? It's not meant to be funny or entertaining. But that's not why I liked it. It's just, it didn't, I don't think it did anything. The whole point of a debate is that it's meant to move the needle one way or the other, right? It's meant to sway opinion. You're meant to convince people. I don't think that either candidate, either Trump or Biden, did anything to convince anyone who was undecided whatsoever. And quite frankly, I think they've just repeated the same thing as they said before. I mean, you said it. What was Biden doing all the time during the debate?
He was just talking to the American people, saying that, there is one less around the table.
No, he does that bullshit where he looks at the camera directly. And
he also says that he's not just going to be a president for the Democrats. He's going to be everyone's president.
I'm not a president for red states or blue states. I'm a president for the United States. But let me tell you, it's the red states. It's like the guy, it's like he just tries to do this thing where he tries to role play kind of like as the big, you're like your grandpa, right? Like, let's just all come together. We're all in this together, guys. And he looks at the camera. And who knows, maybe like old people back in the day, they might have fallen for that. But I think now people understand that politicians are full of shit. And no one buys that crap anymore. They're a different class. They're on a different level. What they say, they never do. And no one's falling for it. Meanwhile, Trump just says the same thing over and over and over again, which is, well, you had 8 years. Why didn't you do it? Why didn't you do it? And brags about how amazing he is without actually talking about why he's amazing. So it's just the same shit that you've seen before. There was nothing new. There was no real zingers. It's like in 2016 when Trump said that Clinton would be in jail. There's no real zingers. There's no like wow moments. It was just kind of like you went in there excited and kind of like expecting this to be a big deal, and then you leave and you're almost falling asleep. It's just the same shit over and over. So there were 6 categories, and I thought that we would go through these categories, kind of summarize quick what they said, and then give our thoughts on them. And so the first one was Corona, and the Corona situation's it's been politicized. The Democrats and Biden specifically are just trying to make it out as if Trump is responsible for every single death in America, and that it's his fault, and that Corona's his fault. And Trump's trying to make out as if they've done an amazing job, and that they've done no mistakes and they're absolutely flawless. That was pretty much the gist of it. Bottom line is they're both wrong. They're both full of shit, really. It's not Trump's fault that Corona happened. Why on earth would Trump want 200,000 Americans dead? That doesn't make any sense. At the end of the day, it is China's fault. It is the way that the ridiculous government operates and works, and how they failed to inform the world and failed to protect the world from their own disaster. It's completely their fault. It's neither Biden's fault or Trump's fault. It's a bit annoying how, like, I think of it in this case. if it was in this country and we were having an election and it was Labour and Conservative and they were going at it and the incumbents were being blamed for corona, like, I'd be annoyed that it's just a blatant ping pong of responsibility. We all know what they're both trying to do. We all know it. It's just a bunch of bullshit. The way to deal with corona, I think, is very, very simple. On one hand, it's two extremes right now. Trump wants to pretty much open everything. Biden just wants to lock everything down. You can't do that. That's just two extremes. You open everything. You probably are going to be... Then you would be responsible for a lot of deaths, because there are a lot of morons out there. But if you just close everything... like we were talking about a few days ago, suicide, depression, unemployment, drugs, alcohol, they're gonna outweigh corona like never before. And in years to come, I said it last time we spoke about this, I think people will look back on corona and it will not be about corona itself. It'll be about the overreaction to corona. And so none of them did a very good job there. In terms of job protection, again, Trump was just going on about how they've made all these jobs, billions of jobs, and Biden's saying how they've lost billions of jobs. And I imagine that people at home watching it are just like, who the fuck is telling the truth here? It's like you're just getting both people saying the exact opposite thing, and no one knows who's true. And the problem is, a lot of people will go and Google it after, or DuckDuckGo it. And the problem is, you can never trust what the media says. Because as everyone knows, the media is all pro-Biden. No one really knows where to find the truth anymore. Because they're all the mainstream corporate media is bought and paid for. They're all owned. Their owners all have an agenda that they're trying to push. It's impossible to tell what's what. It's impossible. No American will ever know the truth about what goes on in their country. It's just two sides saying the exact opposite. They're not even in the same reality. It's like they live in their own weird little bubbles and none of it makes any sense whatsoever. And then you have borders, and this one pissed me off. I mean, if I was an American, I'd be very annoyed at this. Borders in the United States, it's either fuck them, I don't like these people, I don't want them in, or it's we need to bring everyone in, we need to build sanctuary cities and we need to hug and embrace everyone and we're all just friends. And it's like, no, if I was American, I'm focused on myself, right? It's like you want to focus on what you and your family and your friends. I would care about the drugs coming into America. I'd care about the crime coming into America. Race is another one that is incredibly annoying because they always talk about how to think that America is a racist country after voting in Barack Obama for 8 years is laughable. It's like I said earlier, did all the KKK members just forget to vote on that day? You know, the media make out as if America is like 99% Nazis. And 1% decent people, and the decent people are fighting against the Nazis. It's bullshit. It's so overblown. The only people who are legitimate Nazis in America, some twats in the middle of, like, I don't know, some rural hillside community in the arse end of nowhere. No one is. It's bullshit. And yet they constantly try to divide people via race. Poor African Americans, poor Hispanics, etc., etc. The fact of the matter is, if you're poor, you're fucking poor. We have this problem in the UK, and they try this over here where they say it's blacks in the UK are more susceptible to poverty, etc., etc., etc. It's like everyone's susceptible to poverty. I said this yesterday. They want blacks to hate whites. They want whites to hate blacks. It's all about wealth. It's not about the race. The more you divide people into race and you give one race privilege over another race, they're just the one that doesn't get it, in this case being whites, is just going to hate the ones that do, in this case being the blacks. That's how it's worked for all eternity. It's just like an endless cycle of stupidity in America where they just pander to one race over another, and then they make one race isolated and then they feel annoyed. It's just endless. It's just endless pandering in the United States. And the problem is, it's as I said earlier, that bullshit translates over here. Climate. Give me a fucking break. This is the most easy thing ever. And yet I never see anyone come to this conclusion. Poor people don't give a shit about climate change. Rich people, they never stop talking about it. All the CEOs, they never stop talking about climate change. Apple will remove the chargers in the iPhone. We got to save the world. Only the rich care about this. Why do you think that is? Because people who are poor have to deal with real problems. They can't pay the bills. They can't pay the food. Many of them can't get houses, can't get cars. We can't even get fucking car insurance because the car insurance is 5 times our net worth. That's car insurance per year. No one who is poor who has to deal with high rates of crime in the neighbourhood and deal with the family members getting stabbed or robbed or whatever, is going to sit down and go, fuck, man, I'm really worried about the Amazon rainforest. No one's going to do that because no one has time. They've got immediate problems to deal with. So what do they do? What do the bourgeoisie do? They say, fuck you, we're going to destroy all your jobs and you're going to have to deal with it. Well, we've seen that doesn't work. That's happened before due to globalization. Doesn't fucking work. You've got to translate the jobs slowly over to new industries. And that way, the poor will care about climate change naturally. They won't have to do anything. Naturally, by transferring over to clean energy, they will care about it without doing anything. But there's a massive class and wealth divide here, and I don't understand why both of them don't quite understand that. It's not rocket science as far as I'm concerned. And leadership, I Jesus Christ Almighty, I've said that there will be a second civil war in the United States. And I've said this, but it's inevitable because I don't think it matters who wins. If Trump wins, what's going to happen? The people are going to go, oh fuck, it's the patriarchal establishment. They've rigged the election again. And if Biden wins, they're going to go, well, it's all the Marxists. They've rigged it again. No one's going to accept the result. No one cares anymore. What you have in the United States is two nations in one. This problem should have been dealt with decades ago. The Marxist indoctrination should have been dealt with years ago. And America, as far as I'm concerned, from an outsider's perspective, it's just a disaster waiting to happen. You wait and see what happens. And this is a disaster for the rest of the world because Britain is weak and pathetic as a country. This country is a disgrace. All of Europe is a disgrace. The European Union is disintegrating, and even if it wasn't disintegrating, it's completely inept. And it'll never amount to anything, the European Union. We need the United States in the West to be this sort of strong, big-headed, bull-headed, and maybe slightly a bit annoying, frankly, figure in the world, because China's on the rise. And let me tell you, a world where China's a superpower is going to be hell on earth. But there's all the categories, and as you can tell, I'm probably a little bit annoyed, but I'll tell you why I'm extra annoyed, because this is usually the time where I say, well, let's hear your thoughts on it. There isn't going to be no thoughts. There's no thoughts whatsoever, because we did the fair thing, where we went into two opposite and opposing forums. One, a conservative forum, and one that was a forum from the Democratic Party in the United States. And we simply asked them, what do you think your candidate did in the performance? What do you think he did? How well did he do in the debate? In the conservative one, everyone's asleep. Everyone's too busy asleep, no answers. The Democrat one removed instantly, because we can't have free speech, we can't have free thought there. Someone might say Biden did shit. We can't have that. You're both a bunch of fucking morons. Both, and by the way, it's the forum that we asked it on, Reddit. That's an absolute disaster. It's a sad display that we have to rely on these things for feedback. But it's also extra sad that a public debate and public discussion about said debate can't be public. It has to be shut down. For the first time ever on this show, there is no thoughts from the audience because it's not allowed. Imagine that, the so-called land of the free that has freedom of speech, etc., etc. We couldn't get any single response from any American about what they thought because it was shot down or removed instantly. That says a lot about the United States right now. Disgrace. Sadly, not as much of a disgrace as the UK and Sweden, where we come from. God, and that should say everything.